and welcome you all to the new Kolkata, new webinar in ACG Kolkata. Today we have Arvind. He's Sitecore MVP and a solution architect in Sitecore with more than 18 years of experience. He will guide us through the XM Cloud content crawling into the Sitecore Search, the integrated way. So over to you, Arvind.
Thank you. Great introduction, Kaushik. Thank you. And I'm delighted to be here to speak about the session today. But before I begin, I really want to take a moment to sincerely thank all of you for investing your time in joining the webinar. I hope this session brings some good insight into XM Cloud uh, and Surge and the way it is implemented. I also appreciate all commitment, especially over the weekend. So I really thank everyone. Uh, Now, while working with Sitecore Experience Platform, many of us have been exposure working with Solar, right? However, in a headless environment, components can be managed in diverse way, often across different data sources, different vendors, different APIs, and XM Cloud falls under the same category, being headless, right? So we'll come back to these ideas later in the session, but before that, let me take some time to introduce myself. While Kaushik has already given an introduction, I would also like to add a little more for the benefit of those people who do not know me. Uh, so this is Arvind, having more than 18. It's a bit older one, so it's been more than 18 years now, experience in IT sector, and presently residing in Minnesota, United States. Throughout my career path, I have adopted different roles, from being a developer to project manager, and eventually growing into a Sitecore architect and technology enthusiast role. Beside this, I'm a technical blogger and quite active in community. Currently, I'm serving at Horizontal Digital USA as a senior technology lead. Uh, if you have any technical questions, feel free to contact me through any of these channels like Slack and LinkedIn, Twitter, or X. And then you can find a code snippet on GitHub and even on Gits as well. So I think these details are more than enough. So let's move on to the topic today. So these are the topics I would like to cover in today's session, starting with common software development challenges. Then we'll talk about practical use case that we'll focus on today, and then problem statement to serve the use case. What would be the problem while working with that use case, while serving that use case? After that, we'll discuss how XM Cloud works and operates in nutshell, and how Search Crawler operates behind the scene. Then very brief summary of Sitecore Connect. Then experience age with webhook, and we'll jump on how would our solution looks like in practical. And after that, we'll have a Q&A section and then the thank you note. Uh, when discussing software development, there are several common challenges we all need to address, and these includes like collaborative communication, time estimation, security implementation, premature optimization, confidentiality of business information, cross-platform functionality, ever-changing software requirement, and software bugs or broken code. These are the common software development challenges, and CMS are no exceptions. All these challenges apply to CMS as well, especially when it comes to any customization we plan to implement, particularly when integration is involved. But CMS we use generally says that we don't need to worry about too many things regarding the code and how it works, how implementation is going. But when we are talking about any kind of customization that we need to do on the platform itself, then all these challenges again comes into the picture. We need to ensure that we are fulfilling everything, whatever is listed here. Uh, in the word of Sitecore content management and in context of today's session, the efficient indexing of Sitecore content items poses a common challenges for developers and administrators. And this become even more significant when you are operating in a composable environment with various products. Yeah, we cannot simply use vanilla content management system. Many times we need to do that, those customization, and those components needs to talk to other systems as well, being in composable world now. So these challenges are become more important nowadays. While working on real life project, you encounter different scenarios and use cases that you may not be anticipated, and there might not be always an easy solution available. We know we have a lot of plugins available, a lot of modules available, but sometimes you comes into a situation where no modules are available and you have to do something. I faced a similar situation when I believed that implementation should have been simpler, or there were some straightforward solution, but unfortunately that won't be the case at that moment for me. So let me first explain the use case where I struggled a lot during the implementation, and how I overcome, and then we'll deep dive into that topic a little more deeper. So the use case is we have bucketed item in Sitecore. There is a concept of bucketed item. We'll not go much deeper, but we have some bucketed items which constitute a certain type of metadata, and they do not have the layouts, nor do they belongs to any data sources. So I'm not sure whether we have our audience have already explored headless, but in headless we are just exposing the content. So there might be a few contents in terms of in context of sitecode layout service. We just have the items, and layout service is taking care everything like exposing that content to the external world. But there are some situations where we don't have the layout associated with those items, and that is exactly I'm talking about. So those bucketed items primarily used for holding some supplement metadata for PDF documents such as brand information, category, subcategory. So our aim is to index item documents with respect of these metadata attributes within Sitecore Search for implementation of better discovery and filter experience to the user. Uh, if you already have experience on Sitecore Search and how it ingests the data, you might question like, can this be handled by Sitecore Search crawler? So Sitecore Search has some crawler concepts where we can directly use it. So how this session or how this use case is different than that concept, and why it is a big deal. So let's observe the use case more closely to elaborate it. So currently these have been rendered on the page. I mean these items or these documents are being rendered on the page through APIs. So these APIs facilitate the public user to download the documents. These API stands on Sitecore CD server, and it is integrated into the page with the Ajax through filtering based on these mentioned metadata attributes. So if you can see here, there are some metadata attributes here. So we are just selecting a media item here, but we also have some additional attributes like business segment and business unit that it belongs to. So these are the additional attributes that that is going to be used for applying a filter to find out a particular document. So that is the use case. And currently how it is implemented in XP time, We have everything. We have the APIs, we have the pipelines that we can customize, and we even expose the APIs, and we can make just ASX call, and that ASX call will fulfill the services, and we can apply all those filters into our Solar query. But in headless, it is a bit different approach. So as I mentioned, so what is the big deal? Well, it is a big deal while working on headless platform that I talked about. In XP, it can be done, but in headless, it is a bit different approach that we need to follow. So here is the problem. In today's XM Cloud headless environment, the traditional concept of CD server is no longer applicable, right? As I mentioned in XP, these APIs are hosted in CD platform itself, and all those APIs are context aware. That means if those CD server is not applicable anymore in headless environment, this means we cannot depend on Sitecore's contextual API hosting, right? While it is feasible to host these APIs in different platform, but we would lose access to Sitecore context, making it difficult to retrieve only the specific item we need. Therefore, the question arises, how can we index that content into Sitecore search without relying on these APIs? Sorry. Uh, so this challenge underscores the significance of our session, where we will dive into the complexities of indexing non-layout items. I hope use case is very clear, and the problem that we have today to serve this use case is also very clear. Any question regarding this? If
No.
not, we have dedicated session, dedicated hour and time for the questionnaires as well, so we can little more discuss about those questions if you may have. Thank you. So I'm proceeding next. So if you're familiar with how headless CMS works, especially Sitecore headless CMS solution with XM Cloud, you probably have a good grasp on overall architecture and the request processing flow. Looking at the architecture diagram above, it is very clear that content delivery is managed by edge. If you see at the top, these components provide the content and design information in a headless manner through a GraphQL endpoint. So the edge layer is in between, and everything is being exposed through GraphQL, which can be utilized by any of the front-end technology, including Next, including ASP.NET Core, Angular, Vue, React. So with this setup, we need to interact with Experience Edge to fetch the content item we require and send the item to the search. While this method is valid, it is not as simple as it appears. So I think we are all already aware of these architectural diagrams. So we now know that, okay, everything has to be done through edge interface only. Um, Now, it is a simpler diagram. In this diagram, we can observe that XM Cloud publishes the content to Experience Edge, and then Sitecore Search is able to crawl the publicly available content such as HTML pages. It may also access the content API. So here, if you can see, um, XM Cloud publishes the content to Experience Age, and then the HTML pages are being generated statically by Next.js to pull the content from Experience Age uh, and create the HTML pages at the hosting environment, and then Sitecore Search crawl that HTML page to populate the documents into Sitecore Search. Uh, Now, returning to our use case, since these PDFs are not publicly accessible, as I mentioned, it was it was implemented in XP, it was implemented through Ajax call. So, and the filter is already applied. So we can say that those all documents are not publicly available until somebody is applying the filter and make a Ajax call. Only then the part of or the page of those all documents are displayed to the end user, and that is also paginated. So pagination would not directly work because Sitecore Search crawler crawls all the links that are available to the site. It cannot trigger a Ajax call to call the all documents that are behind the scene. So the easiest possible way to achieve this, I mean, this is the use case, but at very high level, the easiest way could be like somebody can ask that, okay, that can be achieved through Sitecore Connect. So for those who may not be familiar with the Sitecore Connect, here is a quick overview. So Sitecore Connect is a integration platform that requires a little to no code built on Workato. It enables organization to seamlessly link Sitecore product with their existing technology stack. With the Sitecore Connect, you can develop intrinsic workflow across marketing and customer experience environments without the expense of custom integration. The connector is capable of pulling the data from Experience Edge and sending it to the Sitecore Search. Uh, so that platform is really well capable of doing that. But that platform comes with the cost. Sitecore Connect is not free. It comes with a cost, and it may not appeal to every client, particularly for those without a complex ecosystem that necessitate a multiple integration. So in our case, Sitecore Connect is not viable option, being it is a costly product. Some clients might not be interested to buy in, and that was in our case as well. Our client was not willing to buy this Sitecore Connect product because it don't have other integration touch point where it can leverage the full capability of Sitecore Connect. Just to serve this use case, they don't want to buy this product. So we had to look into other solution, and that is our journey start with the particular use case that we are discussing today. Uh, so creating production ready code involves some coding standards like ensuring code quality through clear naming and modular designing, conducting thorough testing, including unit integration, automated testing, managing errors efficiently, effectively, and optimizing the performance and scalability. While we won't dive into that much detail, but it is crucial to consider each aspect to 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 propose a solid solution to the end user. I put together a flow diagram to tackle this business problem, and I want to highlight the key components and system requires to reach out our objective. My emphasis will be on transferring item content from XM Cloud to Sitecore Search using the Sitecore Search Ingestion API. There is another way of crawling the content or pushing the content or ingesting or content from any of the system into Sitecore Search using Sitecore Ingestion API instead of depending on basic content crawling with the content search web crawler. While I have discussed earlier that the web crawler is behaving differently, like it is just crawling the public pages, but here this is the different use case where we need to read the content from Experience Edge, and we have to manually push that change or that item into Sitecore Search using Sitecore Ingestion API. So to summarize, how did we achieve this? Here is the flow diagram covering each element and system with their specific role. So XM Cloud, where content is being managed, Experience Edge, where published content are persisted. Then we have webhook to get notification for availability of new or modified content. Then we have message queue to store all item references for further processing. Then we have custom services that dequeue the message from queuing system, transform it, polish it, and restructure it to hand over to the Sitecore Search for further processing, and then finally push the content to the search using ingestion API. So let's talk about each of these systems and their role to solve the problem. I see in some question, is it I mean, should I continue with the flow or should I
Yes,
answer the question?
We
Okay,
can
you
what is
can
the
discuss the
continue with.
question. We can discuss the question at the end.
at the end? Okay, cool. Thank you. So, so we understood that all data would be accessible through Edge only. That means we need to query Edge to retrieve the items we are interested in, process those items further, and then push item to the Sitecore search. We can easily structure the query as shown above. So if you can see here, if you want to query the page that include layout details, we can use the layout query at top, like here, if you can see. And if we want to query items that don't have layout details, we need to use the item query that have displayed at the bottom side, if you can see. So sorry, not this one. Oh, one more back, that query. So there are differences. When item has the layout, there is a different query, but when item has no layout, there is a different query. So accordingly, we need to make a query depending on the type of item, and then we can get the detail of that particular item. Okay, so now, if you look at the query, you get to know that we need to pass individual item IDs. So how can we obtain those item IDs? You can see that we need to pass the item ID to get the full detail of that particular item, but we need to know the item ID, right, to pass that item ID in these queries. So to get that, we have two options. One is apply a search query on the edge to list out all those items for a specific template and process them. And another one is process only the item that is being updated. Obviously, the first approach has a drawback. We always have to process all items whenever we want to refresh the content in Sitecore search or not. Irrespective of that, we still need to process all those items. That is not the most efficient method. Therefore, let's concentrate on the second approach. So with that method, we need to identify which item are being updated so that we can refresh only those items for Sitecore search. So how to do that? When discussing these approaches, several questions comes into the mind. One key question is how can we retrieve only the item that being updated and modified? That is the question. And the answer to this question is quite straightforward by using the Experience Edge webhook. In this context, we are focusing on Experience Edge webhook, not the XM Cloud or XM webhook. You might wonder what exactly is the Experience Edge webhook and how does it different from standard XM webhook. So let's talk about the difference between these two versions of webhooks. Uh, we don't dive too deep into the subject, but we'll highlight the key difference at the very high level regarding when to use what. So for Sitecore developers, a helpful analogy for XM webhook is that they function like remote events. Similar, to the regular Sitecore events that trigger custom functionalities when an item is saved, remote event enable code execution on a different machine, or with webhook, these events can be sent out to the third-party services and integration platform such as Sitecore Connect or any of other platforms. So these webhooks allow CMS to automatically send an HTTP request to an endpoint. You control each time to the event occurs, and the body of that request include detail of that particular item. So that can be exposed through XM webhook. Conversely, if your architecture is based on experience age, which is in our case, we are not maintaining directly a connection with the XM cloud. Rather, we are more relying on experience age because we want to show only the items that are already published. You are not working with the item that is being created or that is being updated by content author regularly. We don't want to crawl that item because we only want to crawl the item when it is published and approved by all of the authors. So conversely, if your architecture is based on experience age, the only way to perform useful action after a publish through the experience age webhook only. So CM or XM webhook will not work because that is a kind of remote events. But in our case, we need to use experience age webhook. So these webhooks are activated once publishing is finished and can notify other client or applications that the content has been updated. They comes with two execution mode. One is the on and another one is on updated. On and the default setting, which indicates that the publishing has been completed but does not provide any details about what changes were made. But on update, it is a little more advanced mode where you'll get a little more details that what kind of whether item is updated, deleted, and what kind of operations, excuse me, had performed on that particular item. The experience age does not have a user interface. So uh, does not have a user interface as it is only way to interact with experience age is the admin API. So all configurations are handled through HTTP request. I suggest you get to know the admin API and set up a collection in Postman. The admin API is a REST APIs that allow you to manage your experience age for XM tenants. So the Postman collection is available. You can just download the Postman collection for experience age admin APIs, and then you can play around. Here is a closer look for the webhook that we are talking about. But to trigger these admin APIs, if you can see the detailing of it, we have the URL, we have some additional parameters or header parameters that we need to pass on. Um, to authorize the request, we need to pass the bearer token. If you can see here at the bottom, we need to pass the authorization header token, and we need to pass as a authorization token as a bearer token. So we need to prefix the bearer, and then after that we need to provide the token. But how to get that token? I just cleared out that token for the security reason, but after bearer, we need to pass on the token. So where to get that bearer token? And the answer is from XM Cloud Deploy app. We can create a new token from Sitecore Deploy app itself, create a new credentials from Deploy app, and select Age Administrator like in this screenshot. You can you can log into the Deploy app, then click on Connections from the left menu. Then from the tab, you just need to select Environment and then create a credential. There are two options. One is Age Administrator and another one is Automation. Automation is mainly used for pipelines or build and deploy pipelines. But for age administration, we need to select that age administration option here. Once you have that token generated in deploy app, you just need to copy it and paste it here. And then you are ready to go. But make sure that you prefix the token with the bearer in the value because it's a bearer token. And in body section, add these lines. Next thing we need is the webhook endpoint. So here, if you can see the payload that we have the URL and we have the bearer token. We know how to generate that bearer token. We have that bearer token, but now what we need is we need to have a URL. So we are going to configure the webhook when any item is being published into the edge, it will trigger that webhook. So we need to have that webhook implemented somewhere. If we don't have webhook for testing purpose, there are some open webhooks available. It is something like a webhook.site. That URL can be generated via this site, and we can paste that webhook endpoint here. Uh, but in practical real life scenarios, you need to create your own webhook that will that will grab the content from this configuration. Whenever the item is published into experience age, it will collect the payload and push it into your endpoint, and then rest of the operations will be taken care by your webhook itself. Now, whenever you make any change into the XM Cloud item and publish that item in age, it will get triggered the configured webhook and pass on the entire payload, something like this. So this is the sample payload that you can see when anything is being published to experience age. Now we know that item ID as identifier in this list, and there are only the items that are being published recently. But we are not done yet. I mean, we are good that, okay, publishing is done. We published 4 items. In these 4 items, few of the items are having the layout data, few of the items are not having the layout data, and couple of items are deleted. So now we know that what operations that we need to perform. So layout data we are not worrying about. That is the first item that we are talking, uh, because the layout data is already there in the public facing pages, and search crawler can crawl that content. In our use case, the second item is important because that don't have the layout data. So that data is not presented onto the public facing pages. So we need to perform operation on that. So here, what information we have? We just have the identifier, item identifier. We have the item entity identifier or definition that whether it is an item or layout data or whatever it is. So we apply first level of filter here, and then we have the operation as well, like it is updated item or deleted item. So we just have these information regarding the item that is being published. But we are not done yet because we don't have enough details again. Like now we have that detail, but there is one more challenge. Uh, and we come across another problem with a new and bigger challenge, and let's uncover that challenge in a little more detail in next slide. So the payload that we get from experiences doesn't have the required details like template ID or a specific detail. As a result, we cannot filter on the template ID. Usually whenever we are doing any kind of operations or filter, the first thing is we are applying the filter on the basis of template. But in our scenario, if you can see here, we don't have the template ID, so that we can filter that. Okay, I'm specific to the item that belongs to a media item. We cannot do that because there is no template ID associated with it. I cannot apply a condition that, okay, I'm only interested with the item having the PDF details. I cannot do that because the template condition or template is not here, so I cannot apply the filter. So that is the challenge. And to tackle this issue, we need to make an extra call to edge for each item ID to get the necessary detail for the further processing. Given that the Edge webhook payload can include the substantial number of IDs, making repetitive calls to experience Edge for each one could greatly extend the execution time, right? So suppose somebody is publishing a bucket and bucket may have 100 items. So what we need to do is we need to go through each item and we need to trigger another GraphQL query to get the details that are missing in the webhook, like template ID or a specific filter that we want to apply on specific field. So that is not part of Experience Edge webhook payload. So we have to have those details by triggering another call to Experience Edge uh, with that item ID, and that is the challenge. Now, uh, if if somebody is publishing the bucket, we may have 100, as I mentioned, we may have 100 items, and if we process those 100 items one by one, what happened? Experience age will get timed out, and that is the practical problem that I faced during my implementation, because webhook will not wait until you process all those 100 items. It will get timed out and you'll not be able to process further. So what we need to do in our scenario, we have to store that payload, entire payload, in some queuing mechanism so that we can just read the payload, store it into the queue, and webhook will be released uh, for the further processing. And the message queuing comes into the picture because we have to keep all those items so that we can further process it. So webhook responsibility is just to get the payload from the webhook and store it into the message queue, and that's it. After storing it into the message queue, it releases the webhook, and experience edge processing is continued. So once we have entire data set in our message queue, we need to perform following steps for the further processing, like dequeue the incoming webhook payload, apply the initial filter to limit the item to process, like only the item that we want to process, only the layout that we want to process, or only we are focusing on deleted item, something like that. That is the first level of filter we can do. Then query the experience age again for each item to get all required metadata attributes and its template. Then when we have the entire data set at our side, apply the filter on specific template that we discussed to limit the further processing. And then when we have that additional detailing, polish or format the data and define the outgoing schema that Sitecore Search Ingestion API understand. So we are getting a schema, incoming schema in different structure, but the same structure is not being identified by the Sitecore Search Ingestion API. Sitecore Search Ingestion API has its own schema to accept the item details. So what we need to do is we need to transform that payload into Sitecore ingestion API schema uh, for further processing, and return the item status summary of the processing. So that is all the steps that we have to follow. Uh, so currently, Sitecore Search Ingestion API only support one document. So we discussed that, okay, uh, the 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 content is already transformed into the schema that is required or that is understandable by the Sitecore Search. Now, Sitecore Search Ingestion API takes over and process all those items. Now another issue could be like we have maybe out of 100 items, we have 10 items that we have identified to be ingested into Sitecore Search. So the better implementation could be, why can't we pass on all those 10 items in one go to Sitecore Search, and Sitecore Search will process uh, all those 10 items in one go. No, which is not a viable solution for now, and that we'll discuss in the feature enhancement that we are expecting. But for now, Sitecore Search ingestion API supports only one item at a time. So suppose we have 10 items to be processed, what we need to do is we need to call that ingestion API one by one for all those 10 items. So here is the API that so that is the ingestion API that you get from the Sitecore Search documentation. We can just, again, like the Postman collection is available, we can just go through it, and to push the one item into Sitecore Search, we need to call this API endpoint with the put method. And the same like authorization, we need to pass on the details into the authorization detail for the request authorization. And this is the payload, and this is the schema that we were talking about. Uh, so that is the schema that Sitecore Search understood. So whatever the information, whatever the details, whatever the payload that we are getting incoming from webhook, we need to transform that detail into this particular schema. So this is the simple payload format that Sitecore Search is expecting to index the content. And that is it. You should be able to see the new document in Sitecore Search platform after a couple of seconds or a minutes. So we are done with the use case we discussed early in the session. So what next? So the another use case could be like now we are all done, like item is getting published, we apply the filter, we got a limited set of data of that particular item, then we make another call to experience is to get more details about the item, then we apply the filter, then we transform uh, the incoming item into Sitecore search schema, and then execute the query. And after execution of that query, that item is now indexed into Sitecore search. So the next step would be, what if that particular item is now being unpublished from our XM Cloud? So when item is unpublished, it should also be deleted from Sitecore Search as well. Otherwise, that item will still be available for end user to search, right? So what we need to do to apply to achieve that? So we have another challenge. We do have webhook event for item delete, but the challenge is we don't have any event to capture the item unpublished in XM Cloud. I hope you understood. Item delete is completely different than item unpublishing. So if we perform item delete and we never publish that deleted item, or we never publish the parent of that item is still there in the CD in XP time. Same applicable here as well. So if we just delete item from the experience from the content tree, doesn't mean that we have to delete that item from Sitecore Search. We just need to delete that item from Sitecore Search only when we are unpublishing that particular document or that particular item. Excuse me. So, but we don't have that webhook for item unpublishing. We have the item publishing, we have the item delete webhook, but we don't have item unpublishing webhook. So what would be the solution of it? And the solution is implementing a custom event. So we can create a custom event and tie up with the webhook for that custom event. We'll not go too deeper on this, but you can just go through one of my article on LinkedIn and get the custom event looks like and how it can be implemented. That is there. But this is way we can create a custom webhook event. What it will do when item published, uh, it will execute that webhook, and then we can take the necessary action on that. Now let's talk about feature requests that we discussed. Like to just simple to just achieve one simple use case, you know that what complexity involved to find out and to find out a proper solution of it. If we have some additional feature on all of these Sitecore product, we would have been in different situations. So while working on these use cases, I have identified many touch points where I think improvements are required, and that would be great if we can see those improvements in form of features in next upcoming releases covering all those Sitecore composable products. And some of these improvements are listed here. The first one is for XM Cloud. So native integration of XM Cloud to Sitecore Search for content crawling. If we would have that, we would have not have to go through all these complexities, and probably we would not have this session as well, right? Because that session is entirely covering that part that is missing today. So native integration is really required for the XM Cloud to Sitecore Search to fulfill these kind of situations where we don't have the public facing content, but we still want to push some of the items into Sitecore Search. So that can be done through native integration itself. So I heard that Sitecore is currently working on that part, and probably that will be coming in upcoming releases maybe. The another feature request is for Experience Edge. So the webhook and its payload customization. We talked about that. We didn't have enough metadata for each item so that we can apply the filter on the basis of template or on the basis of other attributes. If if we could customize that payload, then we could customize and we could add those additional parameters into the payload, but that is not possible today. So this is a feature request again, so that we can customize the payload. And payload has very limited details, so we don't have those important fields that we were talking about, and that is why we had to call experiences multiple times. The first call is to get the item ID. Once we have that item ID, another call is for experience age to get the additional attributes, and then we can apply the filter. So that all complexity might be avoided if we have that webhook customization or payload customization, to be very specific. And then the feature request for Sitecore Search. So Sitecore Search API to support batch processing. As I already mentioned, currently we have to process each item one by one. We cannot process all those items in batches, so that we can just push 10 items, and those 10 items uh, are indexed into Sitecore Search through ingestion API. Currently, we don't have. Another thing is there is no logging and analytics reporting for the ingestion API. We have the crawler logging, but we don't have that logging for the ingestion API. So we need that feature as well, so that we can troubleshoot if something goes wrong. And then Sitecore ingestion API is expecting a strict payload to be processed at search platform. There is no way search platform itself process each incoming webhook payload and allow the search administrator to map incoming field to Sitecore search attribute. Remember, we were transforming incoming payload into the Sitecore search schema so that Sitecore search can can take the responsibility of creating those documents. Usually on other search platforms like Coveo, there is a way of parsing the content, parsing the incoming content uh, for the parsing the incoming content to the proper schema that search can crawl. That feature set is already available in other search platforms, and we are expecting similar kind of feature in Sitecore Search platform as well, so that we can avoid those unnecessary customization at our side. Well, that is all I have for today's session. Now we are open for questions. Any questions?
Okay, so Arvind, we have one in the chat.
Mhm.
Is there any
Okay.
specific reason for keeping the results HTML pages from which site code search finds the content? That
Can you
is
come
from
again,
Arjun.
please?
I mean, the chat it is written by Arjun is there any
Mhm.
specific reason for keeping the results HTML pages from which Sitecore search finds the content? If it is not
Uh,
clear, Arjun, can you please?
Yeah,
yeah.
Arvind,
Yeah.
this
Go
is
ahead,
for
please.
the slide. Yeah, Arvind, this is for from the slide where you show up the diagram where the Sitecore search is fetching up the data from the HTML pages. I think
Ah,
it
yeah.
was, and why the HTML pages? Is there any reason that some content show up in the uh, in the front end, or because
Yeah.
what we have seen is the data is basically in the JSON format or something else where we can fetch the data quickly.
Correct.
Is there
So
any specific reason? Yeah.
no, yeah, yeah, I can take this. So HTML pages, this is a very high level, like by default, Sitecore web crawler crawls the HTML pages. I mean, you can set a source as a like to crawl the sitemap.xml, but ultimately that sitemap.xml also has the live pages link. So what it does is it go through each and every page, each and every link, and then
Oh,
start
okay.
crawling, right? So
Okay, correct.
here we are talking about web crawler, not the API crawler. We have the API crawler as well, and the JSON that you mentioned, it can also crawl the JSON or API, but that is a different source type. And that will also not be used here because in our case, that API is not publicly available.
Okay.
Correct?
Okay,
I
correct.
hope
Got
it
it.
answered your query. Okay.
Yes, yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we have another question from Shivan.
Yes.
Mhm.
From where we can get authorization details, which we need to use in webhook. We need to use in web.
Okay, I think authorization token, I already mentioned, this is the bearer token. You can use the Sitecore deploy app to get the authorization token. Right here, I mentioned somewhere there is a screenshot here. So you just need to log into the deploy app, go to the credentials, and then choose the environment, and then create edge administration token. And once you get that token, you just need to pass on into the request here.
Okay.
And there is one more authorization for search ingestion API, and that token you'll get it from Sitecore Search platform. So to be very specific, when we have the ingestion API here, so that authorization is for Sitecore Search. When we push the content from our webhook, custom webhook to Sitecore Search, we need to use that ingestion API. And these are the details that we need to pass on. These details, you'll get it from Sitecore Search platform itself.
Thank you, Arvind. Any other question? Okay, so I believe that's all. If you have any question, you can contact Arvind in LinkedIn. You can get the LinkedIn URL in our ACG Kolkata website also. Thank you, Arvind, for your time, and thank you all for your time in the Saturday evening. I really appreciate. Thank you all. Thanks.
Thank you,
I
everyone.
believe there is one more question, Arvind.
Yeah,
Yep, go ahead,
we.
please.
Final one.
Yep, go ahead.
That is from Mahendra. How does Sitecore handle multilingual search indexing, and what challenges might you face?
Yep. So Sitecore Search also support localization. You just need to enable Sitecore Search platform to accept those localized content. So exactly like in Sitecore, we have multilingual that we just first need to select what language you want to support. In similar way, you can configure Sitecore Search platform. Uh, like if there are multiple languages, you can just select that what languages you want your content to be crawled in Sitecore Search, and then that localized information you need to pass on each query when you are performing Sitecore Search, when you are performing or triggering the API to the Sitecore Search. So there is just a one parameter like language or language token. It is which is there like US-US for US English language, and there is similar kind of other languages has their own token. So that token will be automatically generated when you select a localization section in Sitecore Search. And Sitecore Search automatically start crawling for those content. Only the thing that we need and should take care is the ID of that document should be same across all localized content. So if we can ensure that ID would be same for all those language, then the Sitecore Search would automatically start crawling the content from various locations and having one single ID for that particular document.
Thank you, Arvind. Okay,
Thank you.
that's all. Thank you for your time, and good night, everyone. Thanks. Bye.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Yep.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye.
everyone. Good day.